I'm a little bit cranky. I'm quitting smoking again, and this time I mean like for reals, like not even vape replacement, no nicotine replacement. I'm just cold turkey. So it's been a week of fucking misery lately. Speaking of miserable fucking things, how about let's talk about again the only thing that anybody ever tries to argue with me about anymore. First of all, politics have become so polarized that I don't even expect progressives to ever come over here and look at my videos that challenge them, because progressives actually only stay in their echo chambers while conservatives and right-wing people and even centrists look at both sides. Only progressives require echo chambers to function, because literally all progressives ever do is lie 100% of the time without exception. There is not a progressive on YouTube who tells the truth about anything. And I mean anything at all. Any subject whatsoever, I'm not kidding. So let's talk about Carlos Maza, the guy who's responsible for adpocalypses, I think both 2 and 3 or 3 and 4. How many fucking complete waves of ruination and cataclysm have washed across this fucking goddamn website? Anyway, Carlos Maza, who claims to be lower middle class, who claims to work really hard, who especially claims right now with his brand new YouTube channel to be somewhat in a precarious position because Vox let him go or fired him or something, or basically they said they didn't want to fund his show, he was too expensive or something. We've heard a lot of differing reports there. He's more likely that he was fired because of all the bad press he developed, because you can't depend on, even with all the dominance and control the progressive media has, the fact of the matter that Carlos Maza is an abuser and a horrible person and a liar and a manipulator who has negatively affected tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of YouTubers. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near him. I'd consider his brand to be poison. So it makes sense that the guy's independent now. But one of the only things that gets me any pushback from centrists and even sometimes conservatives who are well-meaning, they hear me say progressives are fundamentally evil. They're not just misguided. They're not just stupid. They're not even just greedy. They are evil. And that their primary motivation is not greed. The primary motivation of a progressive is not avarice. The primary motivation of a progressive is not even how lazy or selfish they are. The primary motivation of a progressive leftist is sadism. Their interest is in hurting you. And that matters more than stealing from you. It matters more than taking advantage of you. They want to physically harm you, at the very least financially harm you, and that matters more than their own well-being and more than their own enrichment. Is that a fucking moth? Jesus Christ, I hate fucking warm weather. It just never ends. My new light, it apparently attracts the motherfuckers. And by the way, if you think, you must be a dirty slumlord. No, dude. It's South Florida. The insect presence is fucking real, dude. It's intense. It's hard to resist without, like, fucking powerful goddamn fucking pesticides. Speaking of pests, Carlos Maza, it has been found out, although it should have actually been capable of anybody to figure this out in the past, but due to the fact that conservatives don't usually dox or harass people. I mean, progressives lie and say we do, but it took an investigative journalism who felt rubbed the wrong way by Carlos Maza, because Carlos Maza was an asshole who said, oh, we shouldn't take this journalist seriously because he's wealthy. So this journalist decided to look up Carlos Maza. Carlos Maza's mother and stepfather are worth $11 billion. With a billion dollars. Carlos Maza personally has been confirmed to have a $75 million trust fund. Carlos Maza owns a luxury custom yacht. Not just a yacht, not just a big yacht, a custom luxury designer yacht. He grew up in a $10.4 million South Florida mansion. So He's from down the block, actually, the next town over from me. How embarrassing, but not particularly surprising. Now, just because I live in South Florida doesn't mean that I live in anything that costs $10 million. Not even close, folks. There is all kinds down here, too, but normally we do a little bit better than slumlords here. Yeah, that's true. But not $11 billion. Da-na-na. So, Carlos Maza has said repeatedly, the wealthy don't know how the poor have it. The wealthy don't deserve their wealth. We should, in fact, quote, eat the rich. I'm looking forward to having you as my personal appetizer. Now, I'm not exactly down with capitalism, Carlos Maza, but for the good of my fellow human race, I would be willing to accept your personal sacrifice as the most extreme of the elite. Not even bourgeoisie. You are the elite beyond. You are the aristocracy that gets their head shoved in the guillotine on Sunday, the first day of the week. I would be willing, for the good of the people who may starve in the coming revolution, to physically eat you. I will accept your sacrifice if you are so willing, Carlos Maza. I would, I've heard that long pork, that you would taste like bacon. Now, I might get a disease from your degenerated corpse, but because I have compassion for my fellow people, I'll let them have the produce and the real meat and the Twinkies and the mass-produced food that only a capitalist society could provide us. I know that since we're going to be transitioning into a socialist utopia from a, capitalist utopia, and we're going to go from having massive abundances of food. Keep in mind that the number one thing that you can count on every Soviet defector from the 40s on through the 90s to have said when coming over to America is they were shocked at how much food we have. That not even our poor know what it's like to be hungry. And that's when they knew that there was something seriously wrong with socialism. That our poor don't go hungry. That our supermarkets throw out millions upon millions of dollars of food and just spoilage. Food that people don't even buy in our super rich country because we always produce an overabundance so that everybody can always have not just as much food as they need, but as much food as they could possibly want of every kind of fucking food. But this $11 billion lispy queer piece of worthless, less than human dog shit wants to say that the capitalist society that made his parents wealthy, that made it so that he never had to work a day in his fucking life, unless you consider sitting down in makeup and then sitting on camera and, reading a script that he more than likely did not personally write for Vox and whatever fucking media, and then, just running his own fucking bullshit artist lying Twitter account, that this person who has not experienced any want, has not experienced any need, has not experienced anything but not just wealth, but obscene wealth. Not obscene wealth, obscene wealth. This guy's going to tell us how we should in fact be living for the benefit of our lives. And hey, if anything goes wrong, he can just sail off someplace else in his designer custom yacht. This is why these people are evil. Carlos Maza is not a well-meaning person. Carlos Maza, the best you could even say that he's selfish is that he is an attention-seeking narcissist who values being a soapbox microphone for anything, even if it's for the most evil and barbarous and murderous thieving ideology that has ever existed, that has caused far more human suffering, possibly even than religion has throughout the entire human race's history. I mean, we're talking one of the foremost worst things that mankind has ever done to itself, ever, is socialism. Ever. It has done zero good, has done horrific amounts of harm. Keep in mind that if there's one thing that kind of makes the Holocaust sound so much scary, is the implication, somewhat unproven as it is, that a certain number of people were actually like butchered to death. That there's all these rumors of people being electrocuted on roller coasters and masturbated to death with electronic condoms and weird shit like this. Dubious at best, but it is almost certain that at least a few 100,000 people, if not even a few million people, were killed, shot and buried in mass graves and possibly immolated in crematories. And anyway, it's pretty clear that the Nazis did. Even if they just rounded up people in concentration camps and they all died of typhoid and neglect, it's still a genocide of a sort. But you take communism, which has starved to death 100 million people. Not lined up and shot in the back of the head, although it has done a lot of that. Just the statistic that out of the 120 to 210 million people that communism has killed, at least 100 million of them in multiple mass starvations in multiple countries. 100 million people. And you look at our consumer society where we listen to K-pop on iPhones and eat Twinkies and get fat and get made fun of for being fat on social media, where we can talk to any human being on the planet in the instant on a bullshit fucking website like Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or FaceTime or fucking Instagram or fucking Snapchat. You look at this society and say, you know what I'd rather do? Get starved to death because some scientist that our dictator likes thinks that rather than plant corn in a way that corn actually grows and produces a bountiful harvest, that we can literally train corn to grow close together with less water and less fertilizer, because corn, like human beings, can do less for the greater good. So that you can actually train corn, a being that has no central nervous system, no brain processing power of any kind, that can only learn through the most rudimentary genetic means over successive generations through natural selection, that you can, in the matter of a couple of years, in a Lysenko, Dr. Lysenkoist philosophy, train the corn to be planted in harvests across the country in such a way that it will not grow, that will produce massive, unrelenting food shortages, and will automatically, by harvest season, starve tens of millions of people. This is what this billionaire faggot, Carlos Maza, wants for us. Tell me he's not evil. It's not even just the fact that not only has untold amounts of conservative and centrist and liberal YouTubers lost all chance to make any kind of living on YouTube, which used to financially support thousands and thousands of people exclusively. So many people did this as their day job, which is almost impossible now without a solid Patreon or Subscribestar or other kind of crowdfunding setup or selling extensive amounts of merch. And keep in mind, not just conservatives, not just the alt-right, not just liberals, progressive leftists, commie extremists are finding themselves demonetized after Carlos Maza's actions. He is good for nobody. He's not even good for other commie grifters like him. He is less than worthless. He is a sadistic monster who should be chased off with torches and pitchforks because he is a threat to literally everyone around him. He belongs pretty much in a rubber room because he's fucking crazy. You know, he belongs wherever we send the rich who have, what's that disease they said that, you remember that one rich guy a few years ago? I think this happened in 2015 or 2016. He was 19 years old, blind drunk, you know, so underage drinker, who was driving a car with like 4 or something of his friends in it, and he hit a car parked on the side of the road. And that accident killed like 2 of his friends and like a family of 4 in the other car. And he was given probation for killing like 6 or 7 people because the judge said that he was too rich to understand the consequences of his actions. I forget what he called this fake disease, but they had some experts, some psychiatrists come in and say that this child literally is a fucking psychopath because he's too wealthy. He doesn't understand that drinking and driving, keep in mind this kid had had multiple DUIs by the age of 18 in a country where you have to be 21 to drink. Somehow driving without a license, blind drunk, underage, kills 7 people, probation. That's what Carlos Maza is. If it is indeed somehow true that being so unimaginably wealthy, an amount of money that I can't even really think about having because I've had no such anywhere near as much thing. The fact that I'm comfortably middle class when I grew up actually lower class, not dying poor, but pretty fucking poor compared to your average United States citizen. It still blows my mind to this day that there's not really that many things that I have that I want. When my family says, oh, your birthday's coming up, what do you want? And I try to think of what I could possibly want that I don't already have. And that thought is important to me. It lets me know that I am capable of gratitude and for understanding how fortunate I am and not being a greedy, malicious, avaricious piece of fucking shit. That my anger has to do with the character of people and the threat they pose to others. The risk that Carlos Maza is to the rest of the fucking world is why he makes me fucking sick. I'm not even sick of him that he's rich. I'm sick of him that he's this rich and still this malicious, still this vicious, still this arrogant, still this selfish, still this dishonest. This is why he's a monster. It's not because he's gay. It's not because he's wealthy. It's not even because he's a gay, wealthy leftist. It's because he's an abusive and sadistic gay, wealthy leftist. And it's the abusive and sadistic part of him that matters. And the reason why he has all this fucking control is because somehow he's the one who can say people are sadistically abusing me. And for some reason, people believe this malicious liar. Progressivism is a mental disorder. It is a disease. It is a threat. And it is a constant harm. And it is a literal fucking cancer that kills people. That at the very least impoverishes and wounds people, both emotionally and physically. It is nothing but a harm. And if you were a progressive, you were a bad person for supporting it. And the best you could ever hope to be considered by a rational human being is as alarmingly ignorant and cowardly, too afraid and chicken shit and stupid and lazy to face the truth. That is the best you can be, morally, considered as a progressive, when the likelihood that you are fundamentally, knowingly, willfully evil, like Carlos Maza demonstrably, objectively is, knowingly, willfully evil, that likelihood is higher. In the information age, lying is evil. And most progressives, if not all progressives, lie. And the only way you could possibly say that a progressive doesn't lie 100% of the time is if they're so fundamentally ignorant and stupid and deaf and blind to the fucking truth that they couldn't say what the truth is if their life depended on it. When it's far more likely that a progressive will not say what the truth is, even if their life depended on it. Not cannot, will not say the truth. Thanks for watching.